Hey everyone, this is Rick, and welcome back to the Seed to Startup Journey, the entrepreneurship podcast sharing the origin stories of amazing founders and the companies in under 20 minutes. Today, we're going to try something new. We're going to break down some startup terminology that we've used or our guests have used in our interviews. We realize that these terms are sometimes confusing, especially when we're first starting to learn about entrepreneurship. Some terms I'll cover today include lean startup, MVP, product market fit, VC, Series A. If you're not sure what I just said, don't worry. I'll explain them now. Let's start by discussing what a lean startup is. Basically, it's a method of starting a company fast, using minimal resources and getting feedback fast. I think our guest Swish Goswami puts it really well.
The biggest takeaway is make sure that once you have an idea, you don't try to plan too much because your initial idea doesn't need to be perfect for you to go out and get customer feedback and to then iterate it from there. So the biggest thing is to just try to get going. Have an idea, put it into some visual format, whether it's a deck, a presentation, going in InVision and building out a wireframe that's non-functional, and then start showing people, get feedback, and then go back to the drawing board as quick as possible.
To start a company, you first need a hypothesis. Think back to your science class when you're making predictions on what you think will happen. Similarly, for startups, it's what problem you're solving and how you predict people will react to your solution to those problems. For instance, let's say I notice that people are becoming lonelier during the pandemic, but they also don't have enough money to take care of a pet puppy. So I came up with an idea of paper pets, which is basically me doing origami and folding pets and selling that to keep people company. Now, my big hypothesis here would be that people would actually pay for a paper pet. Now, you have to test out this hypothesis. And a way of doing this while staying lean without having to buy a factory to manufacture paper pets right away is to create what we call a minimum viable product, or an MVP. This is a version of your product with just enough features so that early customers can try out your idea and give you feedback for your future growth and development. For instance, I might go to the stationery store and buy colored paper and start folding pets and try to sell them to my friends to see if there's any interest. Here's another example from our guest Tom Fairey, who's testing to see if people would be excited by challenging their friends in video games for potential of winning prizes.
I'm not a scientist, but so what I did was I bought some cheap heart rate monitors off the internet, off Amazon. I think they were like $10 each. They were awful. But my mates were having a FIFA night and I pop over there and I pop all these heart rate monitors and all my mates are like, who is this douchebag? What are you doing, Thomas? What is this madness? And I got to be playing and I just had my little spreadsheet out and I'm monitoring their heart rates. And when we first started playing, it was like, people were pretty average. And then I said, right, guys, we're now playing for pizza. All right. If you don't win, you got to buy the pizza. And it was mad, Rick. I'm telling you, it went from averaging at 70, 80 to be 120, just like that. Wow. The pressure, the sweat. And I was like, do you know what? If you can get someone to have a product which gets someone's heart up from 70 to 125, you're on to a bit of a winner. And so that's what we did. And that was our test.
So now you have your idea and you build an MVP to test out your hypothesis. You want to get feedback from your potential customers on your MVP so that you can keep iterating and refining your product. The goal is to reach product market fit, which is when your customers are buying and using product at a rate fast enough to sustain your product's growth and profitability. Marc Andreessen, the famous entrepreneur behind Netscape and the co-founder of its Silicon Valley VC firm A16Z, describes product market fit as when your customers are buying your product as fast as you can make it. Now, if you'd like to hear from another Marc who's been on our podcast.
And for those who might not know, product market fit is that point where the product that you have created for the market is being accepted by the market and that your sales cycles are a reasonable length. People who are interested in your solution, that a reasonable portion of them end up converting and buying, and that the basic economic machine of your business is put together.
But a startup is likely not smooth sailing. You might realize that a lot of people don't like paper pets. Now, instead of just giving up, you could dive deeper into the feedback you're getting from your MVP. For instance, maybe Bob told you that he didn't like his paper pet because when he tried to take it out for a walk, it started raining and his paper pet died. So you decide to do what's called a pivot. If you play basketball, you might know pivot to be a rotation of your body while keeping one foot on the ground. Similarly, in startups, a pivot is a switch in your business strategy while keeping some original form of the idea in a way that would better fit the market demand. For instance, maybe you realize that everyone doesn't like paper pet because it keeps getting wet and dying. So you decide to sell pet rocks instead. Now you're getting some traction. People are getting excited about pet rocks, but you're also seeing some people copying you and starting to sell their own pet rocks. You've been bootstrapping your business, which means starting your company with only your personal savings and existing resources. But you want to recruit a big team and to buy a factory to be able to manufacture a lot more pet rocks and beat your competition. But you don't have enough money to do that. One way you can raise more money for your company is through venture capital, or VC. And VCs are investors that give you money in exchange for equity or some ownership of your company. How much money do they give? It depends on what stage of the company you're in and how much they think your company is worth. You might have heard terms like seed, Series A, Series B. These are basically fundraising rounds. The average seed round is around $2 million. And an average Series A round is around $15 million, and an average Series B round is around $33 million. The later rounds being much higher in terms of money raised than the C round or Series A. Although recently, rounds have been getting larger and larger, so a pre-seed round of a couple $100,000 is also pretty common. When you raise money in exchange for ownership, you're also effectively setting a valuation or a price tag for your company. We call companies that have $1 billion in valuation a unicorn. There's also Decacorn for $10 billion and Hectocorn for $100 billion, but those are much rarer. Now you might be thinking, great, the more I raise, the more money I get. My goal is to get to Series Z. Now, keep in mind that the more money you raise, the more ownership of the company you're also giving up. Also, at some point, you're expected to be able to sustain and grow the company on your own. So if you're going to a VC asking to raise a Series Z, they're probably going to look at you like you're crazy and think that you're just trying to take the money and not really work on your idea. Raising money from VCs is also not easy, as they try to find the best startups to get the best return on their investments. Let's check out this clip from Cliff Holekamp, who's the managing director of Cultivation Capital, to see what investors look for.
And I think one of the first things I look for is a sense of urgency. They are in a hurry to get things done. They respond quickly. They have a ravenous appetite for information to consume and to produce. And so you're looking for that high degree of productivity and output. And the best way I have to sort of explain that personality type is as a sense of urgency. And you can almost tell when you meet somebody and you work with them a little bit, you talk with them a little bit, or do they return calls very quickly? When there's a question about something unknown, do they get to the answer and find it quickly? Does it bother them not to get it, that answer right away? So looking for that sense of urgency, I do find associated with successful high growth entrepreneurs.
Now, if you don't want to lose ownership of your company and you're a consumer-facing startup like PetRock, then you might want to consider crowdfunding or raising money from the general public. Our previous guest, Karan and Arnav, has successfully launched a Kickstarter campaign for the company Petcode, and our recent guests, Arnav and Arvind, are also thinking of raising money through a Kickstarter. Can you walk me through, the steps of launching a Kickstarter campaign? To some of my listeners as well who might be thinking of doing that, do you need to have a product ready?
No, so actually many of the Kickstarters we've seen are just concepts. We do have our product ready, so that's our case, but your idea has to be detailed enough to convey to the backer that, hey, I know what I'm doing and I know what the steps after I get my money, I know what I'm going to do with the money. You should assure that your backer that their money is going to a good cause. You just have to work on a good story, a good way to get the message to the backer, and connect with your right demographic and offer good rewards, right? I mean, apart from the rewards we're going to give on Silink and like premium features and stuff, we also want to give our backers something to remember us by, like merch and swag and stuff like that. So you should really connect with your backer and you should really build a bond, because these are the people who really believe in you. These are the people you should be most grateful to because they kickstarted your business.
Okay, I think that's enough terms for this episode. If you're wondering about pet rocks, it's actually a thing. A guy named Gary sold pet rocks and became a millionaire in 1975. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. Some books I would recommend are The Lean Startups and Venture Deals, especially if you're interested in learning more about startup methodology or how VC financing works. If there are other topics you want us to cover, like B2B, SaaS, angel investors, let us know in the comments or reach out to us on Instagram and we might make another episode. If you found this episode useful, save it, come back to it, share it with your friends, and also check out some of our other startup journeys of amazing founders. We have high school students who are starting a company at 15 and serial entrepreneurs like the billionaire founder of Square, so be sure to check them out. With that, let's grow our seed of innovation and creativity, and I'll see you next time.